for coming down. Thanks to Jeff Ryders Drum Shop for having me here. It's very cool that you guys have a local mom and pop shop. I've been around a lot, and a lot of the big chain shops come in and take over the mom and pop shops. So if you're ever in the market, always choose a mom and pop shop. Thanks to Jeff for bringing me. In getting ready for this this clinic tour, we've been out for a long time, and we've been doing a lot of big shows all around the world. But this particular gig, whether it was in a bar like this, or in a school like it was the other day, or in a big theater like when we started, it's really made me very, very nervous. Not because I haven't seen smiling faces before, and not because I think I suck, but because I've been to several drum clinics, and I've always taken something away from them, but they seem designed to teach, and they use exercises, language, and theory that I'm not really familiar with. And it's made me, really my whole drumming career, 16 years of playing, it's always made me a bit insecure of really not knowing how to do that. And I'm not a teacher. I haven't been taught, and I can't teach. And I proved that to myself by trying to teach my wife how to play, and she is straight up terrible. So I hope you didn't come hoping that I was going to teach you how to play drums. I'm inspired by the music that's inside of me, the music that's around me, the music the guitar players bring in, that I hear. I'm inspired by watching other drummers play, even if they're not any good. It doesn't matter. I don't sit and watch bands in any kind of judgment of what they're doing. It's more to kind of inspire me, to make me want to get back behind the kit and do something different. And I take that in kind of like I'm charging my batteries. So this clinic may be a little different than ones you're used to. I'm not going to try to teach or impress you. I would put money on the fact that there are probably several drummers in the room that are technically more proficient than I am. But I kind of found my own way to do it. I found different inspiration and brought it into my drumming, this band, and we took it from there. So I'll give you the plan. I'm going to run through a couple more popular Lamb of God songs, because I know certain people are here for different things. Out, and then I'll get into more of my picks, more of the kind of maybe drum-specific stuff, and give you reasons as to why I chose those as we go. And I'm going to be blazing through a lot of stuff. It's hard to cover 16 years of playing in an hour or an hour and 10 minutes, so sorry about that. But I promise I will stick around until every single question is answered, every hand is shook, every baby is hugged and kissed. I'm going to do 3 in a row. The first song I'm going to do is a song called Laid to Rest. And I'll tell you why I chose these particular 3. They are, I guess, the hits of the band, but I'll tell you more about why I chose them after I play them. The first one's Laid to Rest, came off of Ashes of the Wake. This came out in 2004, and this was important. This was the first time that the band kind of bubbled out of the underground scene and really started getting bigger shows, bigger tours, and this was when I was able to, this song, I realized, was kind of leading the way for the album, and this is when I quit my day job, so that's why it's important. The second song is a song called Redneck, 2006 album, Sacrament. This album blew up even bigger than Ashes had, and we were able to tour the world 3 times in 2 years, and open up markets for the band that didn't exist before, so it was a huge song for us, and continues to be one of our more popular songs. And the third one is a song called Set to Fail. Off of Rap, and I'm going to play this song, and the reason it's important to me, it was kind of the single off of our newest record, Rap, but the reason that it's important to me is that we were nominated for a Grammy for that album, and I got to take, which to me is somewhat irrelevant, but the cool thing about that was I got to take my dad to the Grammys, and at the after party where all the kind of stars are hanging out, I'm sitting there kind of drooling over Beyonce, but my dad is hanging out with Tony Bennett, and that was the coolest night of his life, so that is what was all about for me, is doing that. So let me play these 3, I'll be back at you in a few.
Fuck it up!
Yeah!
No, we don't get it.
Want me to sing?
Send us all the words.
songs are fun to play, but at the same time, they're not as fun as some other ones that we're going to get into later. For me, I play those not because they embody everything that I want to do with the drums or that they're showing off really anything about the drums or even the guitars. I play them because they were important to the band in the restraint that we practiced in those songs. And that's what, when we started focusing on the song instead of our individual agendas or our egos, that's why those songs kind of broke out of the pack. And so they're very important to the growth of the band. I probably wouldn't be able to do something like a drum clinic tour if we didn't have those songs. So they're out of the way. I started playing drums when I was 21. That's comparatively late in terms of me talking to other drummers. But I grew up with music. My mother was a classically trained singer, and I got a lot of singing lessons as a kid, and moved from there to piano, played piano for 8 years, there to saxophone, and then middle school, when I started realizing there was girls and stuff out there in the world, I went to guitar. And through my teen years, where most people really fall in love with music and musicians kind of fall in love with an instrument, I fell in love with guitar, and I idolized guitar players. I was listening to a lot of the crossover punk, early speed metal stuff, bands like SOD and DRI, early Metallica and Testament and Megadeth, of course. Listen to all those bands. So by the time I got around to deciding that I was going to play drums, the criteria or what I was listening for when I was looking for inspiration behind the drums was very different than what I would have looked for when I was a teenager. It didn't matter anymore the image of the band or how cool they were or even what genre it was. Now I was more interested in, well, I guess what I would call style, the way a drummer stood out, and not necessarily showing off, but the way they were able to create their own voice with their instrument. And that's kind of what I took note of. That's what I wanted to be able to do for my band. And that was constantly, while we're writing, that's been constantly my idea. Early on in my playing, when I really first started, I wanted to take over the song. I was overplaying everything. I was overthinking everything and trying to put the hardest, fastest thing that I could put into every second of music. And it was cool that I was able to do some of the stuff that I did, but it really had more to do with my own insecurities behind the instrument. I was trying to prove to myself through the reaction of other people that I was good enough to be in the band that I was in. So I was constantly overplaying, making it very difficult for the band's songs to really shine. When everybody has the agenda of their own part or their own ego, you don't function properly. So, and it took a very long time for me to realize that, and it takes experience, and I learned it over, I guess, 10 years. I think Ashes of the Wake was the first time that we really purposefully understood that concept of working for the song, and me especially learning that just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do something. And that really took forever, because I was very insecure about my playing. But if there's one thing that you take away from today, let it be that. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And that means, as a very simple example, yes, I could have done a blast beat all the way through Laid to Rest. Laid to Rest would not have been the same song. Right. Okay. So there were four guys that really made a difference to me when I started paying attention to drummers and the style that they brought to their bands and how they elevated their bands. They weren't just providing a beat, they were providing really a unique voice with their instrument and helping elevate the band's songs with their abilities. The first guy is a guy named Shannon Larkin. Played in a band at the time called Wrathchild America. And this was the first. I was really I got later on much more into progressive rock. And by the way, you guys have a national treasure here in San Antonio by the name of Ron Jarzambek, who is the most underrated, amazing guitar player on the planet that's ever lived. God, where was I? So I was getting into Wrathchild America because they had this spin on their music where it had this progressive element, but it was still heavy, it was still cool. The lyrics were more intelligent than the other stuff that I was listening to. But you could tell that Shannon was offering a really unique way of playing to the music that they were doing, and I thought that really elevated the band and helped them stick out. Another guy, and probably the master of creating a voice behind the instrument, is Stuart Copeland. Some of the Police songs are some of the simplest songs ever written, but you can tell, if you were to take Stuart out of the band, that song just wouldn't be the same. He wasn't overplaying, he wasn't better than the guys in the band, he wasn't trying to shove the drums down your throat. He knew when to shine, when to lay back and create that voice, do something different than the next guy would do with his instrument. Another guy named Billy Cobham. Billy's played a tremendous amount of stuff, but in the early days he was in a band called the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and I love the way that Billy would find different rhythms and kind of hint at different syncopation underneath the guitars and moving time around, and that's kind of what I try to do. People ask me all the time, how do you write songs when guys bring in guitar stuff? What are you listening for? And normally when the guys bring in something, there's something very obvious about it, where the snare might fall or where the kick might fall, at least the way I'm thinking about it. And then there's subtleties to it that I try to dig into, that I try to find, that I try to bring out, to hint at, or to fully expand and play that against it. So who else? We got Shannon, we got Stuart, we got Billy, and Steve Shelton in a band called Confessor. Very underrated dude, very underrated band.
Raleigh!
Yeah, Raleigh, North Carolina, very close to where I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, and they play a lot. And I knew a guy who knew a guy that let me come and watch Steve play several times from very close to the side of the stage or up front. And that was probably watching Steve is probably what ended up turning me on to really wanting to play drums. The guy's so underrated, and before his time, he was playing, with sugar riffs in the 80s. If you haven't heard of him, if you haven't checked him out, do so. It'll blow your mind, and hopefully he'll inspire you the way that he inspired me. And I think the next three songs that I'm going to play kind of hint at the idea of that voice that I tried to create within the band. They're all off the album Ashes of the Wake. And they all, in the writing process, we were focused on the song and not going too overboard, not with our own parts and with the song itself, but we also wanted to make sure that we kept those kind of signature moves about what it is that we do and the voice that we were creating on our individual instruments, at the same time staying kind of within the lines, making sure it was for the song. Probably the best example of that on that record is the song that I'll do first, and I'll tell you about the second one when this one's done. This one's called Now You've Got Something to Die For.
Hell yeah. Yes!
Well, we will be on the way back.
Thank you. That's a fun song to play. Now, definitely the rest of the songs are stuff that we don't normally play, so I hope that's all right.
Okay.
The next song that I'm going to get into, and I'll get through them as quick as I can here, is a song off the same album, but it wasn't quite as much of a hit as that one or Laid to Rest. It's a song called The Faded Line. I chose to play this particular song for a pretty good reason, I think. When we started getting reviews back of this album did really well for us. It was probably our highest rated critically album, and the fans seem to think this is the best work that many times the fans seem to think this is the best work we've ever done. But it was the first time, like I was talking about earlier, it's the first time that we were specifically practicing some sort of restraint in the writing process. We weren't doing everything that we could full on all the time. This is the first time that we were really focusing on the song, trying to elevate those choices. So when the reviews started coming back, they were great. But the one thing that I noticed was that they were all mentioning me. And while I was proud of that and it was cool to show my mom, I thought it was weird because by this point, we'd been on the road for 10 years. I'd seen